welcome back to Poetry Lockdown. We're up to day 123. I love the interconnectedness of these videos. So I'm trying to find places of conversation between poems. And so last week, Miriam Para, a good friend from Chicago, she did a lovely job with a guest poetry lockdown, A Nothing Gold Can Stay, classic Robert Frost poem. I put a link to it in case you want to check it out. It's wonderful. And her doing that Frost poem really got me thinking about Frost in general. Because to be completely honest, I think I kind of had an anti-Frost bias growing up. And I think one of the reasons is I had a great high school English teacher, but he was obsessed with Robert Frost and like made us read all of his favorite Frost poems. And for me, it just felt like, oh, that was, Mr. Fitz's thing. I want to find my own poets. And so I really just made it a point of ignoring Robert Frost, which is kind of hard to do as a poet. But I did. And recently I've kind of dove back into his work. And Miriam definitely made me look back at some of Frost's poetry. So all that's an intro to say, I really have found this particular poem of Frost's to be so fresh for being over 100 years old. And it really feels like it speaks to, moments of today. So with that little intro, let me read from the collected works, even though I'm, anti-Frost at one point in my life, I still have his collected works. So this poem's called Not to Keep. They sent him back to her. The letter came saying, and she could have him. And before she could be sure there was no hidden ill under the formal writing, he was there, living. They gave him back to her alive. How else? They are not known to send the dead, and not disfigured visibly. His face, his hands. She had to look and ask, "What is it, dear?" And she had given all, and still she had all. They, the lucky. Wasn't she glad now? Everything seemed won, and all the rest for them permissible ease. She had to ask, "What was it, dear?" Enough, yet not enough. A bullet through and through, high in the breast. Nothing but what good care and medicine and rest and you a week can cure me of to go again. The same grim giving to do over for them both. She dared no more than ask him with her eyes, how was it with him for a second trial? And with his eyes, he asked her not to ask. They had given him back to her, but not to keep. Wow. So like I said, this poem seems so fresh. I've been thinking about as I was reading this poem and thinking about this poem, that famous saying by Ezra Pound, poetry is the news that stays news. This was written more than 100 years ago. And I read it and I think, oh my goodness, like we would in contemporary speech, at least in the United States, probably say this is PTSD, like this is a soldier suffering. This is written during World War I. Frost had friends that served there. And we've got this soldier coming back and he's talking to his wife and not talking significantly as well. And I think that's what I admire most about this poem is the things that remain unsaid. I mean, I think anytime you're handling dialogue in a poem and you're doing it well, it's like, whoa, I mean, I'm really paying attention. I love plays and I love novels. And so that a poet can do that as effectively as Frost really draws my admiration. But it's also really incredible about how much is underneath the text, this in like the subtext. This sort of, what was it, dear? She's kind of pushing, she's pressing, she wants to understand because there's something's not quite right in that first stanza. And we get kind of this bluff response full of bravado, like this was the bullet, right? But a week of medicine and rest with you, and I'm going to be right as rain. And it's very clear that the wife doesn't buy it, but she takes it. And that just, it feels very real to me. This is a sad, distressing poem, but it feels so real and right the way that this is phrased. And I think my favorite line, which is a crusher, is that second to last line. How was it with him for a second trial? And then it says, and with his eyes, he asked her not to ask. And so there's almost like this understanding that passes between them without any words, that we're not going to discuss this. We're not going to open this up. And again, this is World War I. I mean, how many military men and women and spouses have had this same scene played out so many times. So just incredibly moving, distressing poem. It's not a balm on your soul or anything like that. Last thing I want to mention before I think I'll read that last stanza again because it's incredible, is just to mention this poem has resonated throughout the years since it's been written, and I just stumbled on a terrific short video. It's like 2.5 minutes by the poet and veteran Yusuf Komunyakaa, a Vietnam veteran who looks at this poem, and it's a super sensitive interpretation and really thoughtful, and I'd really recommend it. Just if you're interested in Frost's work or this poem or Komunyakaa's work, check it out. It's really good. All right, with that, I'm going to read the last stanza and we'll call it a day. Robert Frost, Not to Keep, second stanza. This is the voice of the soldier, the veteran. Enough, yet not enough. A bullet through and through, high in the breast. Nothing but good care and medicine and rest, and you a week can cure me of to go again. The same grim giving to do over for them both. She dared no more than ask him with her eyes, how was it with him for a second trial? And with his eyes he asked her not to ask. They had given him back to her, but not to keep. Thank you, Robert Frost, and thank you all for tuning in for another day of Poetry Lockdown. Hope you have a good rest of your day.